Is it live now? So we're going to continue on our particular path, our particular journey. Path, of course, in Sanskrit is yana. It's kind of like what direction are we going to go in? And, with our meditation, learning about ourself, the inner journey, finding, the inner peace, inner quiet that actually exists. But as it exists, we also see that we've created relative type of confusion inside of our minds. And with that, we have pretty much laid for ourselves a type of programming. We're programmed into what we believe is going to bring us happiness. And so when we sit with our meditation and we're sitting very quiet, we want to observe how our mind wants to react. It wants to give commentary. It wants to get away from the second. It wants to grasp the next moment. It doesn't want to be in the moment we're sitting in right there. So the beauty of learning to be quiet, to begin to sit with ourselves, is that it no longer becomes a chore, because there's nothing in there inherently that makes us feel uncomfortable. There's nothing in there inherently that makes us feel like, oh, I can only sit for 5 minutes, my limit's 5 minutes. We begin to discover limitless state of mind, limitless energy, beyond time. We're able to stay in that quiet. And so, even though thoughts arise, like, oh my, I need to get up, I need to go, it's not true. It's not true. So we're looking inside. We're beginning to see that we don't have to fight with the moment. And so we create this type of quiet, or we don't create it, but we recognize the quiet. We recognize the spaciousness within our minds. And the thoughts that have controlled us begin to lessen, begin to lose their power. And as we deal with the world around us, over time, they begin to lose as well. That power, that magnetic energy which has controlled us, all of a sudden doesn't control us any longer. We're able to see beyond it. And we're able to sit in that moment with ourselves. We're able to stand in that moment where we're at. We're able to be. And it's a breath of fresh air. It's very refreshing. So we're not worried. I'm sitting here for an hour. I'm sitting here for 15 minutes. We're just sitting. You're just being in that time period. So as we've talked about the path, the very early stages of the path that we've talked about is the stage where we've become determined that what we've been looking for, what we've been chasing, does not bring the result we've been looking for. It brings us some result, but it's not bringing us the ultimate happiness. That's what we're always looking for. That's what that little thing going on inside of us that doesn't feel comfortable. No matter how things are in certain times, something's not right. There's some intelligence, there's something there that says there's more than just accumulating these material type of products, family, whatever it might be. So we begin to move on the path. We begin to realize there's actually a cause to our pain and suffering, and there's a cessation of that. That in itself is a fantastic thought. Nobody told us our whole life. Nobody has told us, oh, you're going to be able to go beyond what your emotions are, what your neurotic tendencies are, that you're upset, that you're lazy, that you're whatever it might be, that you can go beyond it. Nobody has really told us there's a path out of that. So that's the first steps. We're taking the first step onto the path to take us beyond pain and suffering into a state free from that, free from pain and suffering, the cessation of pain and suffering, the cessation of discontent, of emotional turmoil. Wow. What a novel thought. Wow. That in itself is beautiful. That's something that really feels good. And so we enter onto the path. And so we started and we were talking a little bit about the three principles of the path previously. We were speaking about the first principle of the path, which is that strong type of determination to move beyond these sufferings, this cause of sufferings. Otherwise spoke about sometimes renunciation, but more strong determination in our mind that why do I want to take this particular product here when there's a better one over here? So we begin to have an intelligence that is able to see that these things that we've given all of this type of power to is an illusion. It's a creation of our mind. That's all that it is. It's a creation of our mind. And the problem is that our mind has created this type of an illusion, and it's reinforced it, and it's redone it over and over again, which is in Sanskrit what's called samsara. We've recycled our confusion. We've recycled what we've done. And so we can enter the path and we can go through our life and we can get to the end of our life and we can take a look. And all of a sudden we realize, I haven't gotten anywhere. I can't take my car with me. I can't take my house with me. In Buddhist terms, the only thing we can take with us is our development, is our internal progress or lack of progress. So our life then begins to recognize that we're born and we're going to get sick and we're going to die. What are we doing in between? And that's where we're on that beginning path. And so from that, we now have energy. So when we wake up and we'd say, oh, I'm not feeling like meditating today. I'm not feeling like doing yoga. I don't feel like this and that. We begin to remember that we have this precious opportunity. We have this opportunity in order to move beyond. We have this opportunity that's something very, very precious. And because of that, we have energy. We have some form of energy within us that says that feeling is not there all the time. Okay, I felt that. I feel a little bit lazy. Look at yourself and then you go past it. In your meditation, that comes up. I'm tired. I'm hungry. Thoughts. That's all they are, is thoughts. So what are we actually doing? We're training, like we train for exercise, a marathon. We're training our mind. We're training our mind to be on the path. We're training our mind to create the causes, the positive karma that takes us into states of happiness. We're trying to eliminate the causes, the thoughts, the actions, the words, as much as possible, that create negative karma, create negative environment. And with that, we use the energy in that particular direction. Now, in the 3 principles of the path, the second principle, which is basically the Mahayana principle, Mahayana, Maha meaning great, Yana meaning path or vehicle. It's not great because it's better than something else. It's great because the mind has now went from here and expanded. What is the Mahayana thought? The Mahayana way is bodhicitta. Bodhi, another Sanskrit word, enlightened, awaken. Citta, thought. We begin to awaken this thought that goes beyond oneself, this thought that realizes, with all this pain and suffering I'm able to feel within myself, is also going on with my family, with my friends, with the people I live with, in the environment. And as far as your mind can expand, that's Maha, that's becoming great. All of a sudden, the sensitivity is not just overly sensitive to what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, but it's becoming sensitive, to the world around, to the beings that we live with. So the Mahayana thought, the bodhicitta thought, the enlightened thought, is something that we then begin to develop. So we are extremely fortunate. We are extremely lucky to even hear these words, bodhicitta, enlightened thought, awakened. How many people do we know? How many people are sitting now and sitting there possibly even thinking about the path itself, but are they thinking at all about helping others and how you help others? That one moment of thought, that glimpse, that light is so powerful that in itself it also destroys the seeds of incredible amount of negative thoughts, negative karma, hatred, anger. Because once we've gone beyond ourselves and we're beginning to feel others even more than we feel for ourselves, you're not going to be becoming angry with others. You're not going to have hatred. It's not going to lash out at others. It can't, because that only comes from the deluded mind that doesn't understand who we really are, doesn't understand our Buddha nature, our enlightened nature, our awakened nature. It only comes from when we've moved off of that clear perception, the clear state of mind, and we begin to say, oh, this is me. And because I'm this, I like this, and I like that, and I like that. I don't like that, and I don't like that, I don't like that. And now we've created an intricate, if we were to draw the picture, it'd be a mandala, it'd be our universe. Our mandala, our universe, is based off of a deluded thought. In itself, it's already can't be happy because it's divided the world into these 3 areas, mostly between what I grasp after and what I reject away from me, but also the areas that we just don't have a feeling of anything about, just that death kind of feeling, almost quiet, nothing. There's just a nothing. I don't know. I don't know. Do I like that food or I don't like that food? I don't know. So when we spend our life going out into that environment that we've clearly drawn, if we sit and think about what is that person, who is that person, who is that I? This is me that's meditating, and what I am is I like this, and when I meditate I don't like sound. When I meditate I don't like some feeling in my body. Or when I go outside and I'm at a movie, I don't want to hear other noise. We think that we don't really know ourselves, but if we looked really closely and started getting into it more and more and more, we'd see that we've created a spider web. We've created this incredible web of who we are. And because of that, that's why we can begin out of this unknowing state that we've now created karma, we've created who we are, what we are over and over and over and over again, that we begin to have anger toward these situations. That noise when there shouldn't be any noise. Or I think there shouldn't be any noise. Or feeling, whatever it might be. Well, those thoughts are illusory in the sense that they have no real life to them. So when we look at them within our meditation, we begin to realize that. And when we begin to say, if I'm feeling this, that others are feeling this as well, that's what starts to bring about compassion. Not yet great compassion, just compassion, but just to bring about compassion. Just that I begin to think, oh my God, I want these people to be free from whatever discomfort, whatever pain they're experiencing. Or understanding that they've never heard any words, any teachings that can allow them to enter this path, that there is some intelligence out there. There is, as we talked before, this GPS system that can tell us you're here and there's a possibility of getting to here, being free from suffering or becoming enlightened. So we're very fortunate that we've heard this, we have this idea, we have this concept. So from that concept and from the real heartfelt feelings of beginning to expand onto others and caring about their state, we begin to develop compassion. And it becomes great compassion when it begins to expand beyond just my children, my friends, and goes further and goes further. So the mind itself, the Maha, the great, begins to expand out. And the more we feel, or I should say, the more we have felt our own pain, our own dissatisfaction, and live through it, the more we can feel that of others. So we move along into the path, the enlightened warrior's path, the bodhisattva, bodhi, awakened thought again, the awakened mind, sattva, person. We begin to move on to this path. But moving on to the path is made up of two parts. So the bodhicitta itself, the awakened thought, is at the very beginning is a wishfulness. We wish to develop this. And this is very important, for us to understand. because we're always we always want to get to the end. You know, we've somehow lived in a world where we've become used to instant coffee, place to run to quickly and be able to buy food within a few minutes. And in fact, if that line takes 3 minutes instead of 1 minute, we're not happy with that. We've become impatient. You know, we've become anxious to get these things. But with the path itself and with our mind, we need to take that gentle approach. It's like we were talking earlier about when, which is the same for meditation, the same for yoga. We don't have to necessarily push ourselves, like, I need to get into this position. We just need to take it little by little. That in itself begins to get us there and begins to open and begins to allow us to get to that particular stage. But we want it fast. We want it now. So that becomes somewhat of a hindrance on our path, in the sense that we're back to us again. Here I am, impatient person, want it quickly. I don't have the patience to say, whatever it takes, no matter how long it takes, I want to be able to free myself to benefit others. It was an idea at 1 second, and now it's become a problem. Because if I can't have it now, then I don't want it again. and so in a sense, we need to understand at the beginning, it's a wish. That's the opening. It's a wish. I want to get to this stage. The actual bodhisattva is actualizing it as not the wish, state of wish, but it's the actual ability of being there and doing it. But we're not there yet. So on the path, we need this understanding, gentle approach, and understand where we are again. And have that determination, in order to move along the path itself. So this is something that is very, very difficult, okay? And it's very difficult because we know we've got the energy for some people that we've put into our environment that I'm very close with. But how do we move beyond? Well, that's what the beauty is, and that's what the beauty of this, of Mahayana Buddhism, of this is that there actually is some ways for us to begin to now train our mind, not just to get past our pain and suffering, but how do we get others to go beyond pain and suffering? And that we not only want to, but we have the energy, we have the ability to do this. So it's a fantastic, unbelievable path. It's a beautiful path. As I said, just the thought of it itself for even an instant has so much power, eliminates so much darkness, eliminates so much of the negative, bad thoughts that we've had before in the past. So understanding this, we begin to move along and practice in a particular way. Well, first of all, we're talking now about the second principle, the Mahayana principle, in a sense, of the path, which is developing bodhicitta, which is becoming this enlightened warrior. And in the end, we're going to talk as well about the third part of the principle of the path, which is the wisdom of understands emptiness. These are like, the wings on a bird. Without the two wings, a bird can't fly, an airplane can't fly. So the first part of the path, some of the practices that are done, starts with the practice. And we've been using quite a bit of meditation for developing mental calm, mental quiet, and one-pointed concentration, samadhi, through following of the breath, and a little bit of insight meditation and seeing ourselves, seeing our minds and things. What we haven't talked about is there's another form of practice, which is analytical meditation. So, it's very easy for us to say, oh, I don't want analytical, it's just going to create thoughts. Thoughts are not the problem. We're not getting rid of thoughts. We don't need to get rid of thoughts. It's what kind of thoughts we have. It's how we see ourselves, how we relate to ourselves and to our thoughts. So at the beginning of the practice for developing of bodhicitta, of developing the awakened mind, there's an interesting concept which is called developing equanimity. Why do we develop equanimity? Because right now we're very, very partial to where our compassion and where our love goes to. Our compassion, which has that strong wish, feeling for somebody to be free from pain. Our love, which wants them to be happy. How does that expand out if we have these demarcations, if we created these fences out there? We can go out this far, but we can't go out that far because we're blocked. So the equanimity meditation comes in where you begin to look at yourself. You sit down and you can visualize, imagine a person that you care very much about in front of you, somebody that you love. And then you also have somebody that you don't have many feelings for, you haven't decided I like them or don't like them. And then you also have, you bring about the image of the person who's your enemy, who you don't like. The truth is that there is no inherent enemy or friend out there on their own, sitting there by that. When we begin to look, when I look back and I see somebody who was my best friend when I was younger, all of a sudden do one thing because I heard him, spreading a rumor about me, I no longer like them. I hate them. If I even hear their names, I hate them. We need to see that. We need to look and see that again. And do we ever have the experience that when we look at them, we also see that even maybe in this lifetime, something changed. All of a sudden, they've come back to being best friend again. We're projecting onto other living beings. We're putting them into these categories. As long as those categories exist, we cannot develop bodhicitta. We cannot develop great love and compassion. We can't, maybe for Tibetans and for Eastern culture, it's easier to also understand that there's much more than just, than only this life, that throughout all of our lifetimes, these relationships have been different at different times. Other people have been our mother, have been our best friends, have been our enemies, have been our bosses or whatever. But for us in the West, that's a hard concept for many of us. So we don't need to look at it that way. All we have to look at and see if inherently, what happens to my mind when that person all of a sudden offers my mother some gift, offers somebody within my side of the mandala that I like, offers me something, says something nice to me. When we sit there and see that person, and before I didn't even want to see them, I don't want to look at them. But all of a sudden, when we see that they've done something different, my selfishness changes my attitude toward them. So we might say, well, okay, that's just, again, bad attitude that we've created, and why do I even want to look at that way? Because we're on the path. We're not going and talking great, higher understandings of reality right now. We're just talking right now on a relative level, seeing that there's actually a concept, ability to change the way we interact with the person that we think of as friend, as enemy, as neutral. So the equanimity is talked about in Buddhism almost as like when we go out into the fields and we have to plow out there and make the ground even and flat before we plant the seeds. So before we get to the later stages of planting the seeds of love and compassion, we need to be able to actually sit and see that this situation itself, who we generate anger and hatred toward, or we generate that we wish them no good whatsoever, is only being projected from our own mind. It doesn't exist inherently within all living beings. Tough concept. Tough concept. Very, very tough concept. Very effective way to bring your mind, sit quiet with yourself, get to quiet states, and from a very quiet state, from a very objective state, see that your mind has been doing this to you from the day you were born, and before that, if we want to talk about previous lives. This is what's been happening. I always love the story. Arun, I think we talked about it before, going to the bazaar. Okay, you go to the bazaar in India. Oh my God, energy's crazy, like this. Everybody, am I right? Crazy energy there, trying to sell, buy things, things going on. And I remember that, that'll always sit with me. That I thought about it while I was there, and then at the, toward many minutes of this confrontation, I smiled. And funny thing happened, that person smiled. And this energy that was there, which felt so real, disappeared into space. It left an open space. It left a possibility of moving forward, of meeting of the minds. I wasn't dug in any further. He wasn't dug in any further. And it created a totally different thing. This is true story. So, that's my, my own type of experience. But the fact of it is that we need to get into our states of quiet, and at some point we need to train our mind. Because without training our mind, we're caught all the time in this. So this first level of bodhicitta, which is equanimity, is very powerful, is very, very, very effective. The rest of it that builds off of it, there's other points, there's different ones that are also very, very powerful. But once your mind starts to train in this, rather than training in what we've been trained in our whole life, there becomes possibilities. And that's always there, and it always exists. So I think we've kind of run out of time, so why don't we have a few questions, and in our next sessions we'll begin to move along on the path and through some of the meditations and things that can be used. So this analytical meditation is something that once you look at that and you begin to see it, when it becomes clear, when there becomes a point of clarity into this wisdom, into this intelligence, you then focus your mind on that. You concentrate. You're not thinking anymore. You're not looking. You just focus at that time. You sit in that state. And you let that leave an imprint inside of your mind that can be so powerful that when we find ourselves in our daily life, we no longer are under the same control we once were. So if you have questions, we can do a couple of those, but otherwise we've kind of ran our time out.
So bodhicitta, like create a mind with love and compassion, not create, but look good in everything, and that will create that love and compassion in any given situation. And make you a little more wiser, some more wisdom will come from that.
Yeah, bodhicitta has relative bodhicitta and it has ultimate bodhicitta. So ultimate bodhicitta is actually relates more to the ultimate state of our mind and actually to the wisdom that understands emptiness, but at the same time, ultimate bodhicitta, again, is that bodhicitta that in our enlightened state, in a sense, there is no fence around anything. Okay, so the bodhicitta, the enlightened thought, needs to be developed. There are many practices out there. Okay, and I'm speaking to you from, the beauty of the Tibetan practices is that it encompasses, especially in Buddhism, encompasses everything from the beginning of the path to the end of the path. But in the end, we can become free ourselves. We can reach nirvana. But to reach enlightenment, we need to have bodhicitta. So, as I said, there's different ways of doing it. This form of analytical meditation, especially when using it with equanimity, begins to give you some other path, and it starts to change your mind. Your mind changes. And I'll go over that more when I go into, love and compassion and things, but the other parts that goes on into the meditations, this is actually something that's, I'm not making this up. What was taught to me many years ago and was always, very, very strong and effective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm okay. So it makes sense, obviously, when you get when in equanimity. If there's no self and we're all connected, then there's no enemy and there's no tier one or neutral or negative, positive, negative, right?
Mm.
So that kind of realization or obtaining that allows you to not get caught so much in that type of thinking, like you said, put fences around certain situations or people or whatnot. So I can get that in a big sense. And then in your day-to-day life, sometimes, people are acting unskillfully towards you, right?
Yeah.
They're challenging you in ways they shouldn't, or they're super impatient. You go to the grocery store, someone basically almost runs into you. Everyone's on edge,
Yeah.
And so it's hard to absorb that. So there seems to be, and you don't want to be like a martyr per se either, right? Where you're just taking on unnecessary things from other people, but yet we have this ideal or this maybe it's even reality that there's just this equanimity, that there's no, there's not such a bad and good. So it's sort of,
well, we want to get beyond equanimity, but that's becomes the basis. We can't get to the love and compassion. We can get to the love and compassion partially, but to get there fully, we first have to level our mind somewhat. Okay, because not with everything, but with this awakened thought. This awakened thought is, you're only awake when you see that it includes everything and everybody. Okay, so you can't get to that state. if you don't really want to get to that state, that's okay, in a sense. Or I don't know if it's okay, but in the end, you're going to have to do it at some point. You're going to have to get there. Okay. Now there's different ways of getting there and things, but eventually that state has to awaken inside of your mind. And at some state, the awakened state of mind, no matter how you got there, is not going to discriminate friend, enemy, unknown. Okay. So once you begin to see that that line of thinking is faulty, okay, the GPS tells you to turn right, and there's no way in the world you're supposed to be turning right. You're supposed to be turning left. So you have to override. Your wisdom has to override.
From moment to moment.
From moment to moment.
And if you fall asleep for a moment and react or something, then you just have to remind yourself, wait, this isn't reality, right?
You just have to move. You have to move on. You have to have compassion for yourself. That here we are. It's a long path, and we're going to make mistakes all along. I'd like to say that it was like coming in here and we were able to take the elevator and go from 0 up here to here, but it's this. It's more like walking through the mountains. You go up, and then you come down a little bit, and you go up. Or what was Paul Abdul? 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or whatever it might be. There's there's this play that goes on along the way, and there's ways of dealing with that. And as your intelligence begins to develop, you're able to develop and understand how to be dealing with that. Dealing with the situation inside of a supermarket, is like anything else. Okay, if you had super, compassion and that was already developed, and you really cared more for them, you don't care that they've gotten in front of you. But if you haven't, then of course, you still need to deal with it, and you at least don't have to have, so much hatred. You have some understanding, some wisdom. Compassion has more emotion to it. Wisdom is more, wisdom is Spock from Star Trek, basically. It's just non-emotional. Oh, well, we need this and this and this, like we told like I told the story one time, about there that the Spock and the captain were inside of the prison, and Spock went and sat and did meditation. He came out of the meditation basically and said, this prison is just a force field fed off of our minds. When we let go of it, it falls away and we can walk right out. Okay, so we need to be able to combine our wisdom and our compassion along the path, day to day, moment by moment. Okay, same thing with like martial arts. With martial arts, in reality, with martial arts, if there's an opponent, or if you're doing sport, whatever it might be, if the world has slowed down for you, like that movie Matrix, if it's slowed down, you have time to know to move this way, to move that way. If you panic, you don't know what to do. And then the situation gets worse. Got off a little bit there. Yeah. I don't know if I answered you or confused it more, but yeah, it's basically it's a conflict in the sense that, I guess it's like when you watch a movie and they have a person that tells you to do the right thing. Give yourself sitting on the shoulder, and the person there's this good one saying, "Be kind, be nice," and this one saying, "What are you talking about, you idiot? You're just being a sucker." Hit him in the face or something. So this this conflict is going on and on. Whether Star Wars is talking about good and evil, that's within ourselves. That's within us, basically. And so little by little, when we do when we're doing meditation, especially what's explained in one-pointed concentration meditation, samadhi and things. There's different things that along the way, that's can become also that are distracting, and this and that's taking place. you begin to gain power. So that's why they show inside this thing up here with the wheel of life. They show in one stage there's this wild elephant up there. That elephant being wild is very powerful and is very dangerous. As you're beginning to tame that elephant begins to be very useful to you. That's our mind. Our mind becoming under us beginning to understand it and deal with it is very powerful. This whole environment is created, good and bad, nuclear weapons or whatever, is created from our mind. How we use our mind is up to us. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.